everyone, and welcome to the new episode of Entrepreneurship Lab. This is your host, Nevena Bajalac, welcoming you once again with interesting guests, interesting topics where we help you how to grow and scale your business and have success on your entrepreneurship journey. So I'm very excited because my guest today is coming to us from the United States. His name is William Smith, and William is a leader in life insurance business, and he helps families create legacy and financial portfolios and generational wealth that we all want to achieve, right? So he is responsible. He actually runs Fed Legacy, which is a company responsible for over $750 million in wealth creation. And what a perfect guest to help us learn a little bit how we can create that generational wealth. Welcome to the show, William, and thank you for being here.
Oh, thank you for having me this morning, Navina. Thank you so much. Thank you so much.
Well, tell us a little bit about yourself before we jump into some principles and everything. I like to ask my guests, what is something about yourselves? How did you started in this field? How did you started as an entrepreneur? And how did you learn things that you know today?
That's a great question. Believe it or not, like when I started entrepreneurship, I was a kid, right? And so my dad was a person who was always a curious learner, right? He always had tons of books in the house on a variety of topics, right? And so the first book that I read that really opened my mind was just a history on the history of Africa, right? That I wasn't getting in the schools that I was going to. And so like that just explored my mind. And I was just like, wow, the world is so big, right? And so then I had so much hope of like one day I want to see this whole world. And then that led me to, okay, the people that travel a lot have time to themselves are entrepreneurs typically. And so I put down the history books and so I started reading business books. And like one of the first books I read was a guy by the name of Robert Allen. His book is called Multiple Streams of Income, right? And it's like this big silver book with green letters. And like it was just like an exciting looking book. But I read it and I'm like, wow, like you have money come from here, 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 and it's all coming automatic. Like, how cool is this? And I'm like a teenager, and I'm like digesting this information. And then that led me to Rich Dad, Poor Dad by Robert Kiyosaki. And so then I'm understanding like how money works. And then I went to Think and Grow Rich by Napoleon Hill. And so I said, you know what? And at that time, and this time I'm around 15, 16. So I had a job and I was making like $5,000, something real cheap. But like, I'm working all these hours out here and I get this little bit of money. And mind you, I had no bills at the time or anything. But I just knew I'm like, all right, there has to be a better way. And so that one thing led to the next. And then before you know it, like I'm interning in different businesses of friends of the family who had businesses. And here I am today just as a business owner. And I wouldn't want it any other way.
Yeah, I mean, books are such a valuable asset. I always say I wrote some books and I feel they're not appreciated enough. And
Yeah.
I feel because it really is a lot of effort, and somebody can have a years of experience and learning, and they put it in 100, 200 page book, and we can get their mind and their knowledge and stuff. So I myself always read a new book, trying every week new book. Depends how much work I have. But yeah, Rich Dad Poor Dad was the first book that I read that opened my mind. And I was also amazed, like, wow, nobody taught us. I was the best student with master's degree, and yet my parents didn't know this. I was like, wow, why don't we have properties that we can rent? My parents spent the whole life building a huge house we live in, which is a liability and costs us a lot of bills, right? So it's just the mindset that if nobody taught us how to do it, we don't. So it's very valuable, and it's true everything is said about that process. So tell us a little bit more about things that you do for people and families, and how do you help them?
Okay, so like our business is a niche business, right? So if you're listening and you're trying to get in a business or you're struggling with business, one of the things you want to focus on is a niche, right? So our business, and one of my mentors always taught me, he's like, you want to go a mile deep and a few inches wide, where most people want to go a lot of inches wide and a few inches deep, right? With all these different new exciting opportunities. But we chose to go a mile deep and a few inches wide. Because that really made us a superstar in our particular niche, right? And so what we do is we focus on life insurance and retirement for federal employees in the U.S. and military personnel in the U.S., right? And so we're doing the same retirement planning as everybody else, but because we're niche, we stand out, right? And so what we do, and also our market is over 9 million people, right? And so and they all have pretty much the same exact problem, right? And so what we're doing is we're solving most federal employees have uh a life insurance policy that keeps going up every 5 years in cost. And so what we do, we created a product that fixed the cost and doesn't go up anymore, right? And so that is an immediate win for us, right? Immediate win for the client. And then what we also do is they're getting ready to retire, we help them build out financial plans. And so what that does is that help both of those things that we do helps them create generational wealth because we're real big believers in like like you and I, like it seems like we grew up kind of middle class a little bit. Parents didn't have a financial education, but our goal is to give those families the financial education so that they then can create generational wealth for their families. And so that's what we do.
Yeah, that's great and really helpful for so many families out there. So, William, I want to ask you, how would you define generational wealth? Like for someone listening, what is the line where we say, okay, now I have achieved generational wealth? Like now my kids are good or the grandkids are good. Like what is the first step or the first moment where we can say, oh, I have created generational wealth?
It's interesting you asked that question because I've been getting asked that question a lot. And it used to be a money thing, but now it's more so a lifestyle thing and also a knowledge thing, right? Because you can have all the money in the world and be completely unhappy, right? You can inherit it, all that, but for me, it's lifestyle. It's like, can I do what I want when I want to do it? That is important, and that number can vary for many people. So it's hard to put a number on it. But it's can I do what I want when I want to do it? That's number one. But then number two is, am I acquiring the knowledge to make the world a better place, right? Because I want to acquire it, right? So some people, they work, but they have no capacity to learn more because they're just so tired, right? Or they're in a victim mindset. And so they're not exploring new opportunities, ways to expand their mind, their kids' mind, their spouse's mind, right? And so to me, those two things, can I do what I want when I want to do it? Right? If I want to spend a month in Asia, if I want to spend, wherever, right? Can I do that and learn the culture? And then number two is, am I investing in myself? Do I have the ability to invest in myself to expand my mind so that I can then expand the minds of people around me? So like to me, that is generational wealth.
Yeah. And I think when it comes to money and finances, yes, people have different lifestyles, but I think the biggest point we have when it comes to finances is when we cannot do something we want, right? I cannot take the trip I want, or I cannot pay something for my kids or better school or after school activities or right. So I think that's the pain point where we feel frustration about money. And that's also like a main motivation for me in everything I'm building is I just want the freedom. And the first step for me is like, okay, I'm
Freedom.
creating freedom.
Freedom.
Exactly.
That's the word. That's the
Freedom
word. Freedom. Yeah.
to right. I have financial freedom because these investments or these businesses, right, are paying for my basic needs and bills, and then how I can improve my lifestyle, right, how we can double that. So I think the freedom is what most of us want, but like you said, some people, they want yachts and private planes. Some people are just happy that their bills are paid and they can travel a few times a year. So everyone should set their goal for themselves. This led me to the next question. So if somebody is now starting, they don't have much financial education, where should they start? What is the first step to start building the financial independence or financial freedom?
One, just that's a big question because it's well, you said everybody listening pretty much is entrepreneurs, right? Right? Is that the case? All right. So if you're a business owner, to build financial freedom and you're growing your business, one, that's a big way to build financial freedom in the business, right? And you want to be building your business in a way that is where it's not a job, but it's actually a business. What that means is if you stepped away from the business for 2 months, the money's still coming in. That's number one, right? Because some people have a business, but it's really just a high-paying job, right? If you go away, the business crumbles, right? So you want to make that differentiation first, right? Because if that's one way to have wealth. You can have a cash flow business and be fine, right? You don't have to sell it. I know you can sell it, but you don't have to, right? If you have a solid management team in place. So I would invest first there, right? And you've already done that if you're listening to this podcast already, right? So start there, grow bigger with the business. That's one thing. But if we want to talk about outside of the business, what you want to start doing is you just want to start putting money away, um, honestly, towards your retirement, right? You want to start doing that. Um, I was getting ready to tell some U.S. stuff that you could do in the U.S. tax laws, but since it's a general audience, I won't go there. But whatever your country is, I'm sure they have self-employment, retirement funds, things like that. You want to make sure you put money there. But again, it's just if you already have a business, just make sure you just expand your business and build it in a way that you have a management team in place. It keeps growing, and then one day you sell it, or one day you can keep it cash flowing, right? And that's what I would say.
Yeah. And I mean, I come across a lot of people and they ask me sometimes about finances. I'm not an expert in finances, by the way, but I always say first step for me when I moved to Dubai, I was 26 years old and I had a job. It was not very high. It was a management position, but not very high paid. They just pay the bills and not very satisfying. So I went to a seminar and it was talking about different type of investment, understanding different types, especially about stocks and things like that, and retirement plans as well. And it was actually a group of teachers from US who realized, okay, we have this job. How do we build for future? Because we don't have government retirement here in UAE, right? So the first step actually was to download an app and track your expenses. And I started tracking my expenses and I saw some stupid spending that I was doing. And I was like, wait, if I'm spending $100 a month on coffee in Starbucks and so on, why can I put $100 into stock account? And I think from my point of view, a lot of people don't even have an idea where they're spending their money, and they have to prioritize to paying themselves first. So what are your thoughts on that?
Oh, absolutely. So like pay yourself first is something that you definitely want to do, right? Like before anybody else gets paid, put 20% aside for yourself minimum, that way, that because again, when you start putting money aside, it builds confidence, right? You start to look at like, oh shoot,
Yes.
my money is going up, right? And then again, it goes back to when you have money set aside, when the opportunity comes to learn more, because I'm big on expanding your mind. You can invest in your education, right? If you want to figure out, okay, maybe I want to start this podcast and I want to, get an audience to be able to get new leads from my business. You can invest in the equipment to do that, and that becomes you could 10x that investment, right? But you can only do that when you're putting money aside consistently. And then if you want to go to a conference, it's like, okay, I want to go to this conference and then meet new people, find a new way in which I can expand my business. Because you have put money aside, you now have the ability to do that, and meet new people who are doing the same thing, and it increases your network, and it just keeps going up and up and up from there.
Yes. And what would you say to some of the startup entrepreneurs who are maybe not generating regular income and it becomes very difficult to maybe put every month on the side? What are your thoughts on that? Like, how can they start prioritizing themselves and getting some investments or something that's going to bring them as well passive income later?
That's a good question. You just got to do it. Like you just, no matter what, because you can always create the story of, well, I can't afford it right now. No, like you said, Starbucks. If you like one of my agents, right? One time, she was saying the same thing. She was like, I can't save. I just don't. I said, all right, open up your bank account. And she's like, what? What? Open up. I'm like, yeah, open up your bank account. Come on, let's log in right now. And then she was like, she curled up like a baby, and she just like, oh. And so we went through. I was like, see, you overspending here, you overspending here, and like we went through it. And we discovered a couple $100 that she was wasting every month that she could put towards her savings. So if that's you and you're saying you can't afford it, just audit yourself. You don't need Starbucks every day. And again, you'll have it in a year or so. Like you just got to sacrifice now, to be able to put money aside. And once you start that, you just grow in confidence. And then over time, you're like,
Yes.
oh, wow, I've been doing this my whole time.
I think the problem is instant gratification is that people always want to enjoy, and entrepreneurship, it's very hard. And I made the promise
Sure.
when I started my journey, I was 28, I had no kids. And I said, well, now is the perfect time because I understand it's realistically, it will take a couple of years to really build something stable and grow and get my investments. And I said, okay, right now is the perfect time for me because I don't have anyone depending. I have less stress, right? Than if I have, I don't know, three kids depending on me and so on. So, but I sacrificed 3 years, 4 years I didn't travel. I don't do my nails that cost $80 in Dubai. I sometimes don't go out, but I pay myself first. And what helped me is investing even in real estate. It was like I made a goal and then money starts showing up. The moment I said I'm going to purchase this property or this land or I'm going to build this, the money starts showing up. And the moment show up, I pay myself first towards my investment, and then I sacrifice some things. But I think a lot of people, they just want to enjoy the life, and they're saying, oh, we live only once and we should enjoy. But they're not thinking about actual retirement and future. And most of them, if they lose their job, their paycheck, they are really they don't have any security.
None. You're right. You're right. You just got to start. You got to
Yeah.
start. And I love how you talked about instant gratification, because that's key in business too, right? You can't be spending all day if you make your business. You got to invest that money into the future, invest it in the staff and things like that. Because I run across a lot of entrepreneurs and they're making good money, but they don't have the right staff. It's like, you know, you can double your income with staff. It's going to take a year of, like, you know, pulling back, but that will double over time, you know? So you're right about the instant gratification part.
Yeah, exactly. So I want to ask you next question about generational wealth. I know in the United States there are different rules, but some general rules when we want to create something, maybe it's a real estate or our investments and things, and we want to pass them to our children, right? What are some things we should be aware of in general when we want to create that?
Well, in the US, you know, you gotta make sure you have different things set up. Like, you gotta have your estate plan done, right? So that's what we always talk about. And what that looks like in the US is having the proper trust, right? So you want to make sure that, you know, you don't own anything, right? Meaning things are in trust. And then, you know, you have your kids as the beneficiaries of the trust. And, you know, you want to make sure that stuff is set up. Because, and then you want to make sure, like, something as simple as a lot of people forget is you want to make sure that all your accounts have the proper beneficiaries in place, right? Because if you don't, your stuff going to go to probate court and things like that. It's something that, you know, you don't want to happen, but can easily happen if you're not paying attention to every little place that your money is. And that's why having a trust set up is important, because you and your state attorney will sit down and your state attorney will really, you know, make a checklist basically, like, all right, where's all the money, right? And that way all the money's in one place, is theirs in a document. But if you don't have that in place, it's really on you to be able to think about, all right, where's all the money that I have? Where's all the real estate? You know, who's the beneficiary and everything. And so you just want to make sure you have that estate plan set up, so that you don't have to think through that. Because if you don't, that is going to be a complete headache for you, for your kids, or your
Yes.
spouse if you first. Yeah.
Yes. And considering here in Middle East, we are residents, but we are never nationals of the country. There are different laws, right? So if I'm based in Dubai, and usually a lot of couples are, from different nationalities that they meet here, it's very important to understand laws of your country and depending which passports your children have. So if you're listening, make sure to speak with the lawyer, with someone who is in charge, and plan for it. No matter how young we are, we never know what can happen. And I think it's important to start planning those things accordingly and setting those things for our children. So, William, what are some tips that also you would give us if somebody says, okay, I have this amount of money and I want to do something for my children? Should they? I know there is not one way, right? I know some people have more experience in different areas and they prefer different ways. But can you give us some examples of where we can invest that money for our children and our next generations?
Yeah, so like when it comes to your children, one of the things you can do, it depends. If you're in the US, one of the things you could do is you can open up a Roth IRA for them, right? And sit the money in there, right? Then they have custodial IRAs. If you're a business owner, you can hire your children, and that's something that we've done. We've hired our children work for the company, and then we pay them a bonus every year, right? And that money goes into their retirement account, right? And that money grows tax free for them, right? And so and I just started doing this 2 years ago, because I just didn't know, right? And so then someone came to me, they said, do your kids work for you? I'm like, yeah, but they're not on paper. And they're like, no, put them on paper. Put them open up a custodial IRA, pay them a bonus every year, right? And that has been great for us. We're growing that. We're excited about that. So that's one of the things as a business owner, that's something that you could do. That's a little known hack that you should take advantage of.
Absolutely. And when it comes to trust funds or investing in stocks, real estate, is there any other tips you can give us as well in that area? What is your
Yeah.
experience?
So my experience, I'm not a big real estate guy, but as far as stocks and stuff like that, I am, right? So one of the things that I love personally is index funds, right? Index funds are good because the fees are low. You track an index, S&P, Dow Jones, whatever there's a bunch of different index, but those are two of my favorite, NASDAQ, right? You want to track those because the fees are low. You're able to invest in a lot, like, the S&P 500 is based on Standard & Poor's 500, which is the top 500 companies in the US. And so you're able to invest in those companies, but you have balance, right? And so if Apple has a bad year, it's okay because you have Microsoft, right? Or if Tesla has a bad year, it's okay because you have uh, Amazon, right? And so those are the best for me. And then the fees are very low as opposed to mutual funds
Yes.
or directly investing in stocks. We have all that, like, there's nothing wrong with investing in stocks. But if you're just someone that this is not your thing, then index funds work really well because, again, you can get them for low fees, and you get very solid returns.
Yeah, an index fund, for example, when I read the numbers that if you invest, I don't know, $200 a month for your child, or even $100 between the age 18 and 30, and you just let it sit there, by the time they retire, they're going to be millionaires because there's going to be that compound effect. And you don't have to
Yeah.
do anything, right? You're just putting in index fund of, what is it, a couple of hundred best top performing companies every year, and it's a minimum work, like you said, minimum fees. So if you're listening, that's something you should get to understand
Definitely.
and find a platform that works in your country where you are, that you can start investing in index fund.
Yep. 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 Yep.
Amazing, William. So I would like to wrap up the episode with maybe some final tips that you have to give to people listening. Whatever your tip is, I like to ask at the end. So give us a little bit more of your wisdom and experience and knowledge.
Yeah, sure. As a business owner, like, number one, congratulations on that. It's hard. Keep it up. Keep it up. And one thing I would just say is, as a business owner, when it comes to expanding your business, invest in your marketing, right? Especially in this digital age, because your customers, you can go directly to your customers now, right? No longer is it the old days where you had to go through different agencies and know who you need to know. You don't need, I mean, you still need to know people, but you can get directly to your customers. So if you're out there and you're wondering and you're watching this podcast, we're both business owners, right? And so, like, just invest in your marketing, go directly to your customer, be niche down, and don't be afraid. Like, people are looking to hear from you and for you to solve their unique problem, and don't be shy about it. Like, this is a great opportunity for you to do this, but start now.
Oh, I love it. Thank you. And I just want to ask you, if people want to connect with you, if anyone listening in US and they need specifically your services and they would like in general to be connected with you, where they can
Yeah.
find you and what is your website or platforms you're using?
Yeah, you can just go to my Instagram. Mr. Willpower is again, that's Mr. Willpower on Instagram. And then if you're in the US or you're overseas military, or federal employee somewhere deployed overseas, it's fedlegacycall.com. Fedlegacycall.com. You can set up a call with me and my team, and we'll help you build generational wealth for you and your family.
Thank you,
Yeah.
William, so much for
So
being
much.
here.
Yeah.
Thank
Yeah.
you for your time. We want to thank the listeners. I'm sure you got a lot of tips from this episode. Remember
Yeah.
to subscribe, download the episode, and share with at least one person that can also benefit. And as always, I will see you in the next episodes.
Yep. Thanks so much.
Thank you.